So today we are going to break down and give you some ideas. We're not telling you these are necessarily the goals that you need to own, but depending upon your age, we're going to give you some guidance on some financial goals that you could possibly consider for yourself.
This is also the time now to start building, and I know it's challenging when you think of yourself as broke, but you want to start building a cash reserve. So you want to make an aim to start with at least 1 month of non-discretionary expenses.
Be very mindful about what is important to you and make sure that your spending and your saving and investing reflects those values that are unique to you and your family.
And then you want to learn to budget with joy, not restriction. And that's why here at Curo, we like to call them spending plans and not budget.
Hello, welcome back.
Hello, good to see you, partner.
Great to see you too, partner. It's been a few days.
Too long.
Too long. Back together, reunited with you, with our people listening, our viewers, our listeners, people we love so much. So welcome back, everybody, to Living Richly with Curo. This is episode 76. We are so excited to be back with you. My name is Ann McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely partner, Atricia.
Hello, viewers and listeners. I'm Atricia Roberts, COO and partner here at Curo. Thanks for coming back to listen to our themes. Or if you're new, thanks for checking us out for the first time.
Yes, we love you all. We appreciate you all. And if you are new here, we are here to inspire, educate, empower you on your financial journeys. And we're both really excited about today's episode. I feel like we always say that, but for real today, we're excited about today because we are going to talk about a question we get a lot, which is like, what should my financial goals be, right? Sometimes when prospective clients come in to meet with us, they are 100% clear on what their goals are. But oftentimes people are like, I know I want to retire eventually, or I know I want to fund my kids' college education, but sometimes they need some guidance around what should my financial goals be. So today we are going to break down and give you some ideas. We're not telling you these are necessarily the goals that you need to own, but depending upon your age, we're going to give you some guidance on some financial goals that you could possibly consider for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to change, like life does, but just having some ideas of things to target, I think will be helpful. So hopefully, everyone will find some value no matter what phase of life you're in.
Exactly. So whether you're in your 20s and you're just getting started, or you're in your 30s and you're juggling maybe your career and possibly a family, or you're in your 50s looking towards that work optional lifestyle, knowing where you should be and kind of where you should be focused, hopefully will be helpful. So Atricia, since you
Yes.
look way closer to 20s than I do,
right.
you're going to kick off with the 20s.
Also, today is blow smoke up Atrice's skirt day, I see.
No, are you kidding me?
All righty. So let's talk about your 20s. So in your 20s, you're probably, hopefully, earning less than you ever will, right? We think of 20s as the broke years.
Yes. Have a job, check. Not making a lot of money, though.
Not making a lot of money at all, check. So you may be paying off some student loans, right? You may be moving to different apartments or new city. So you have a lot that you're juggling on your plate. So here are some goals we want you to focus on in your 20s, or of course, share this with the people you know in their 20s. Start saving, even if it's a little amount. Just start. And automating savings can also be a great thing to do, even a small percentage of your paycheck if you can. So you have access sometimes through your employer to a 401k. You want to start making contributions and taking advantage of the match. So even small bits of savings will make such a huge impact over time. This is also the time now to start building, and I know it's challenging when you think of yourself as broke, but you want to start building a cash reserve. So you want to make an aim to start with at least 1 month of non-discretionary expenses. So think about all the things you can't afford to live without, right? The things you would have to pay even if you were unemployed. Figure out what 1 month of that looks like and set that as the target to start building that in your cash reserves, or what we like to call emergency fund. And then try to increase it and work towards getting it to 3 months as fast as you can. You also want to start investing early. So, even a few $100s in an account like a Roth IRA will grow dramatically and very tax efficiently over the course of your life. So, you may not know where to start, but just know making a small contribution to a Roth IRA, or even if it has to be a traditional one, will always help in the long run. And then you want to start protecting and or building your credit. So for many people in their 20s, you may have never had an auto loan in your name or a credit card in your own name. So you do want to start building a credit history, but you want to be very, very careful with protecting it. So you want to make sure you're paying your debt on time every time. It's very, very important to building a really healthy credit history, and you want to avoid high interest debt as often as possible. So, what I would advise is don't do what I did and get a high interest rate credit card. I know it seems tempting, but if you can avoid high interest rate debt in your 20s, is really the time to start honing in on that really healthy debt behavior. And then you want to learn to budget with joy, not restriction. And that's why here at Curo, we like to call them spending plans and not budgets. You want to think about it in a very positive way, but start getting a handle on your expenses, what things are costing you. Start itemizing those subscriptions, right? If you can afford to pay for Disney Plus and Paramount Plus, understand what those things cost you every month and start to create a real plan around those expenses so that you know when and if there's wiggle room to start doing some savings. So, those are the things we want to focus on in the 20s. It's not about being perfect at all. It's very hard to do when you're just starting out, but it is about being intentional. And setting some intentional goals will help you build a solid foundation. And then your financial life will just get so much easier from there if you start from a really sound place.
Yeah. If all of us could just go back to our
Oh,
20s, right?
Oh, if I could redo it with the knowledge I know now, things would look so much different.
Exactly. So if you are listening to us right now and you're in your 20s, please,
Yes, now is the
your
time.
40 something year old self will be happy that you're taking this advice.
Absolutely.
All right, so now let's move on to the next decade, your 30s. So, your 30s typically are going to bring, on the one hand, higher incomes, which is fantastic, and on the other, a lot more responsibilities. So, maybe at this point, you've bought a house, so you have a mortgage, maybe you've started a family, your career is hopefully growing, and you're making more income. So, this is, I think, the decade where we start talking a lot about what we like to call the struggle with the juggle, right? You got a lot going on, and it's about prioritizing. And this is really also when your financial goals should start reflecting your values and your lifestyle. So, here are the goals that we would want you to consider focusing on in your 30s. Number one, Atricia already talked about building up your cash reserves in your 20s. So, we wanted you to start with that, 1 to 3 months of your expenses and cash reserves. But hopefully, now in your 30s, we really want to push that up to closer to 6 to maybe even 12 months. We talk a lot about the importance of cash reserves. If you lose your job, if you're furloughed as a government employee, which is literally going on right now, we want to make sure you have cash reserves to access so that you can continue to obviously pay your bills and be secure. Number two, maximize your retirement contributions. So we talked about starting your retirement contributions in your 20s. This is really where you want to make sure that you're maxing out things like 401k, TSP, whatever retirement account you have access to. Try to get the maximum amount that you can in that retirement plan. Number three, start saving for major financial goals. So, if you have started a family and have children, and it is your desire to help them pay for college, let us just tell you now, it's going to be a lot of money. So, the sooner you crunch those numbers and start putting money aside, the easier it is going to be. If you haven't bought a house yet and this is a goal of yours, this is also the time that you want to get really serious about aggressively accumulating as much as you possibly can for a down payment. Number four, protect what you've built. So, especially if you have a family, you want to make sure that you have the proper insurance in place, proper estate plan, so that if something happens to you and your spouse, partner, your wishes are documented. You have a custodian for your child or children if you have a family. So, really making sure that you think about those what if scenarios. I know they're not fun to consider, but they're really important to make sure you do and you have a solid plan in place. And then this is also where you really want to double down on making sure your spending is aligned with your values. So try really hard to, not try to keep up with the Joneses, not try to buy things or do things necessarily that your coworkers or your neighbors or your friends are doing, but be very mindful about what is important to you and make sure that your spending and your saving and investing reflects those values that are unique to you and your family.
Yeah, and I wanna double click too on the protection, because the
Mhm.
30s, I think, is where you really start to accumulate things, right? Where you actually own assets, and
Mhm.
protecting them and having a plan for them is so important, now during that phase of your life. So let's talk about the 40s, or the decade that Anne and I think is the most fabulous.
Yes, we highly recommend. It's
Highly
amazing.
recommend. But these are often your peak earning years, but they can also be the expensive ones. And I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I'm the one giving these goals. This would probably be a testimony from my partner. But these are times when now, if you have a family, your children are teenagers, right? They're expensive and they have hockey.
Oh my
And
god.
there's all the after school programs and the summer camps. There's college, but this is also a time when you may also have aging parents, right? We think of this sort of as the start of that sandwich generation where people are of the age where they're caring for children, but also helping to look out for, care, and support aging parents. So here are the key goals we want you to focus on in your 40s. This is now the time to reassess your retirement goals. Are you on track? Again, as you are now in your 40s in these peak earning years, you probably have a clear idea of maybe when you want to move to a work optional phase, right? That seemed really far in the distance 20 years ago. And so now may be the time to increase your savings if needed. You also want to prioritize debt payoff, especially on those high interest rate credit cards and any other high interest rate consumer debt. You want to focus on getting the debt down. It's also a good time to fine tune your investments. So you want to make sure that your portfolio matches your risk tolerance and your time horizon. So this is always a good time to maybe start working with a professional, right? Looking at how often portfolios are rebalanced or how they're allocated to make sure they're completely in line with your financial goals. And then here's when you start considering other goals. I mean, 20 years ago was just about saving money and eventually retiring. Now there may be other things that are important to you. So increasing the travel budget, right? I have a travel fund. I typically like to take nice trips. Or maybe you want to be more philanthropic, right? You have charitable goals in mind, causes you want to support, or maybe you even want to own now additional property. So, not just your primary home, but maybe you want a summer home, or maybe you want a rental property. So, the 40s is really a time when clients start thinking about what's next, right? When people are start considering what's next for my life, maybe this is a career pivot or moving to a new city. So, having financial flexibility allows you to entertain those choices and the what ifs in the 40s phase of your life.
Yeah, and you were just meeting with a client, Atricia, who is there, right? She
Yeah.
was saying she's asking these questions.
Yes, she's 49, turned 49 this year. And then now the things that felt really abstract a long time ago seem more into view. So she's asking questions like, well, wait, can I retire at 55 instead of 65? Like, is that something I can really do now? Because as you start to approach, the 40s transitioning into 50s, a lot of those things are a lot closer. They're a lot
Yeah.
closer than they were.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like when we work with younger clients, we just kind of throw out a
Mhm.
retirement age like 65 and they're like, "Yeah, sure, that seems like forever and
That
a day
seems
away
right.
anyway." So, let's go with that. And then as they get closer to that, to the 50s, they're like, "Wait a minute,
Right.
65, I don't know. I think I want to
Yeah.
make work optional sooner." So,
Yeah, I may wanna do something different. I wanna consider what could be different in my life. Maybe I don't wanna do this for the next 10, 15 years. So,
yeah,
it's such a fun conversation to have with
right.
people, especially when they've laid a foundation where you can really entertain the possibilities, and that's
Yeah.
why it's important, right, to give yourself the flexibility to have those options as you consider what the next phase could look like.
Yeah, I think especially for some of our clients who are in very high income, but very high stress jobs, this is
Mhm.
also where they're like, okay, maybe I don't want to totally stop working, but can I work for a nonprofit and like
Right.
completely slash my income
Yeah.
by probably more than a half?
And that's exactly what she said. She was like, "I would even be willing to consider earning less money if I could
Mhm.
just, keep healthcare, if I could keep my benefits and have less stress, I'd be willing to entertain a lower salary." So,
Yep, exactly. So crunching those numbers and making sure that it's feasible based on how much
yeah,
you've saved. Those are fun things for us to work
yeah.
on.
Yeah, those are always the fun projects.
Yeah, so fun. All right, so let's move on to your 50s now. So your 50s is all about preparation and protection. And as Atricia just mentioned, the closer we get to our 60s, the more this abstract idea of a work optional lifestyle is no longer abstract and it's like right there and it's coming fast. And we want to make sure that we are 100% prepared and ready for it. So, key goals in your 50s. Number one, this probably goes without saying, but we want you to get serious about reassessing what retirement or work optional lifestyle looks like for you. If you have not maxed your contributions, definitely do that in your 50s for sure. Take advantage of as much of those retirement savings as you possibly can. We also want you, secondly, to reduce any sort of big debts going into retirement. So, ideally, as you go into retirement, maybe you'll still have a mortgage, but that's really the only debt we want you to potentially carry into retirement. It's really important that you go into retirement with as little fixed expenses as possible and as little debt as possible. This is also where we want to revisit your investment strategy. We've mentioned this a couple of times, but certainly in your 50s, as you get closer to making work optional, now we're talking about needing to potentially access those assets soon, right? And so when you're in your 20s and 30s and you're thinking about your retirement allocation, you can afford to be very aggressive, very growth oriented because you can't even touch the money for decades. But now we're getting closer to you potentially needing to access those assets. So balancing growth and safety is extremely important in this phase. Number four, so we've talked about the financial aspects, but now we also really want you to visualize what is your work optional lifestyle or retirement going to look like? How are you going to spend your time? How are you going to spend your money? With whom? Where are you going to be? These are the non financial aspects of retirement that we really need you to get clear about because we always say to our clients, we'll help you make sure the financial piece is in order, but you really need to be clear on what your life is going to look like and how you're going to spend your time. And our clients who thrive and are the most successful and fulfilled and happy in retirement are those who have a clear idea of how they're going to spend their time and a plan. Super, super important.
Yeah, the non-financial piece I find is always the most challenging for clients. It's understanding what life is gonna look like when so much of what they've dedicated their life to turns off, right? What
Yeah.
does every day look like? What do I fill my days doing? That's always it's always the hardest for us to help help them
Yeah.
manage, right? And help them make those decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And we've done a whole webinar on this. We did a podcast episode. So if you just search on our YouTube channel for non financial aspects of retirement, you'll find lots of good goodies there for you if you'd like
Yeah.
to dig in further. Number five, we want you to consider long term care. What is your long term care plan going to look like? We did a whole episode, number
Mhm.
63, around long term care specifically for women. And yes, we talk about long term care insurance, but we talk about other things that you need to consider when you're talking about planning for long term care. So please check that out. But this is an important consideration. And again, something we want you to be clear about in your 50s. Next is estate planning documents. We've mentioned this a couple of times, but if you haven't yet, definitely get serious about your estate planning documents. And you want to think about this not just in the context of your passing, but also if you are still here with us, but something happens and you're incapacitated. So you are still alive, but can't make decisions. Who is going to be making those decisions for you? So the documents that you have to have in place as part of your estate plan while you're living are just as important as the ones that you need to consider for your passing. And then lastly, if you have done a great job so far of building your wealth, do you want to share some of it while you're alive? So these are also
Mm.
fun conversations that we have with our clients, where a lot of our clients say, we don't want to wait until we pass for our kids or for these charities to get either donations or inheritances. We want to be able to help our kids probably in the years that they need it the most, and also
Mhm.
where we can see the benefit of our generosity and our giving. So if that is you, maybe considering increasing your charitable giving or helping your kids out if that is something that is aligned with your values.
Yeah. Again, it's another fun conversation to have when you're having those conversations where clients have accumulated the wealth that they want to share. But also to the point of estate planning, I think it's really important to talk about what happens even during your lifetime. We also talk on our long term care episode about when you're a single person, right? When you're unmarried or unpartnered, it's really important to have documents in place about who you want making those decisions for you, because it may not be your next of kin.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and the court may assume, right, based on the laws in the state that that is who you would
Right,
want, and that may not be the case.
right.
So, it's so important to have
Yeah.
your wishes documented. The other thing to mention, and this really could fall, I would say, in 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, is we talk a lot with clients about possible Roth conversions.
Mhm.
So, if you're not familiar with this strategy, you basically take assets that are in pre tax retirement plans. So think pre-tax 401ks, traditional IRAs, and you convert them to Roth. And by doing that, you pay the taxes today on the conversion as if it were earned income, but then you never pay a dollar of taxes on those assets in the future. So it can be a very powerful strategy. And yeah, I would say probably in 50s, 60s, maybe even early 70s were pretty aggressive with Roth conversions, but we did want to mention that and kind of sprinkle it amongst a few different decades for you to consider Roth conversions because those can be pretty powerful both while you're alive, but also when you're thinking about passing assets to
Yeah.
the next generation.
I was gonna say also really efficient for the next generation as well. We're big
Yeah,
proponents of Roth conversions here at Curo.
we are. We're about to go into our busy Roth conversion analysis season here in November.
Lots of work, a whole week block to
A
just
whole
look
week
at the
block to
planning for
just
clients.
crunch the numbers till our eyes are crossed.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
It will be.
All right, so your 60s. Now, this is the phase of your life where you start to make that shift from accumulation, just saving as much, storing as much away as we can, to enjoyment and sustainability. And I think it's funny because when we have conversations with clients, there's sometimes with them this hesitation to want to actually use the money they saved, and I always ask, like, well, what were we saving it for? Right. The idea was that at some point you would get to the place where you would be able to use your nest egg for enjoyment and, of course, sustaining, life through the end of life and post retirement. So sometimes it also takes a mindset shift to go from accumulation to enjoyment as well. But here are some key goals for your 60s. This is where you want to start finalizing your income plan. And we do a lot of income planning for our pre retiree and retiree clients to figure out how we replace that paycheck when they move into a work optional phase of life. Here's where you want to start working on that income plan. You also want to start getting a good understanding of Social Security and of Medicare. I can promise you it's a lot more complicated than you realize, especially Medicare. I don't know why they make it so complicated to understand. We've done Living Richly episodes on Social Security. And of course, we refer clients to Medicare professionals and experts because you want to start getting your arms around what that means for you in your work optional phase of life. You also want to start talking about simplifying finances. So, again, we've already talked about, and Ann already mentioned, getting debt paid off, right? Maybe with the exception of a mortgage. But this is also where you want to consolidate accounts and automate distributions. You want to make your financial life as efficient and easy for you as you can. So, all of the random, Robinhood and Fidelity and Vanguard accounts you opened in your 20s and 30s, now is the time to start thinking about consolidating those and creating that plan for a sort of after work life financial picture. And then you want to, and this is a really big one, keep growing. And this is both emotionally and financially. Retirement isn't the end of a financial plan, right? You think of it as the goal, like I just want to retire, but it's just the beginning of a very new chapter. I mean, we've mentioned several times of clients who retire and then go back to work, or they retire, they stay retired for a year or two, and then they start a business, right? So just think of retirement as the beginning of whatever the next chapter is. And there's still a lot of planning and nuance that goes into living your very best work optional life. So, again, wherever you are in these different phases, we hope these goals can help. And of course, we're always here to give advice when you need it.
We are. We're here for you. Never too early, never too
Nope.
late.
Nope. And again, if I
Most
could go back
certainly.
and tell 25-year-old Atricia a few things, I would do it. So it's never too early to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully that was helpful. What do we have for a closing thought today?
My closing thought is really just thinking about those still experiencing the federal government shutdown. Those of us in the DC area, we're now in, is this week 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think definitely in week 2, about to head
Yeah,
into week
about to
3.
head into week 3. Again, so just thinking about those who are being impacted and affected. I know it can be challenging. We talked about it last week, and then we always talk about the importance of cash reserves. But we're coming into the place where we're about to run into, I know, I think the first missed paycheck was last Friday,
Last Friday, yeah.
right? October 10th. So now we're going into another pay cycle with
Mhm.
no idea of what's going to change. So just thinking about, those of you impacted, and of course, offering, us as a resource, reach out to us at podcast@Curo Private Wealth if you have questions, things that we can help address. I think I keep thinking about so many people who are going to work every day and not really having a clue of when they're going to get paid again. And so
Yeah.
our thoughts are with you. And if we can be a resource, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah. Also very much the businesses, like the restaurants and the bars and things that are
Hmm.
directly affected. I know there's going to be so much lost revenue, and hopefully the government workers will get back paid, right,
Yeah.
for the missed pay, but contractors may not, and the restaurants that are directly impacted or certainly not. So many people. It's not right. It's not just the workers
Yeah.
directly,
There's
but
the ripple effect
yeah,
of it as well. How it affects, local governments, DC government is directly impacted. So
yeah,
it's a huge ripple out of what's happening here.
yeah. Get your ish together, Congress.
Please.
Imagine if we ran our business like that.
I know.
Yeah.
Just shut it down. Like we don't want to work on the budget right now. We
Yeah.
can't. We're just gonna shut it down.
Right. Exactly. Oh, can't even
All right.
imagine. All right. My closing thought, and I may have shared this as a closing thought before, but I love it and I repeat it to myself frequently. And I also think it aligns with our topic of today, especially for our younger listeners and viewers. And the closing thought is easy choices or decisions now, hard life later. Hard choices, decisions now, easy life later.
Simple
So,
yet profound.
yeah, so many applications again for our folks listening who are in your 20s. We understand it can be hard to save, especially when you're on a very limited budget. We understand it can be hard to pay down debt. We understand it can be hard to invest, but trust us, if you do it now, it will make your life easier in the future and you will be so happy. if you have those hard conversations with people that you've been putting off, it will make your life easier in the future. So make the
Yeah.
hard choices, do the hard things now, and your future self will thank you.
Yeah, there's actually, and I won't even say it's a Southern saying, it may just be something my grandmother always told us.
Because she has the most amazing sayings that Atrice is going to write a book about one day.
Oh, yeah, one day for certain, but she would always tell us, "Don't make your bed hard now, because eventually you're gonna have to lie down in it," right? And that's what that
Mhm.
reminds me of, like,
Yeah.
make the choices that help you make that bed as soft as possible, so when you finally
Yeah.
have to crawl in, you're
Land in
comfortable.
it. Yep. Soft landing.
Don't make your bed hard. That's what she'd always tell me. Don't make your bed hard. One day you're gonna have to lie in it. Like, I got it,
Yep.
girl.
Yep. So true. So true. Yep. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode. We will see you next week here on the podcast. And until then,
Live richly.
thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Friendly reminder that this is for informational purposes only. For additional information, please visit us at www.curoprivatewealth.com. Until next time, live richly.